been traveling in different parallel universes, looking for my daughter. Looking for a world where she wasn't kidnapped and murdered. She's been dead in all of them.
Thanks very much for speaking to me, and thanks very much for a fantastic movie.
Oh, good. I'm
I've
glad you like it.
just been speaking to Kevin and Matthew all about it, and I told them how much I enjoyed it. The first thing I said to them was, I said I love going into kind of like time travel, parallel universe movies with in the hopes that it will work and it doesn't kind of fall through kind of the holes that a lot of those kind of movies fall through. And it didn't. It worked perfectly for what it did for me anyway. So congratulations on that. I'm quite curious how you approached that, knowing that those kind of movies can kind of fall flat on their feet because of those kind of those parallel universes and that kind of thing. Michaela, if you want to go first.
Well, I watched a bunch of movies before we started filming that are kind of in that sort of world, in that genre. I watched like Memento, which I'd loved when
That's
I'd
one of
seen
my
it.
favorite movies of all time. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's so good. Looper, I watched.
Right.
I mean, my brothers kind of gave me a list of like, this is kind of what we're going for. They mentioned this, it's a great indie movie called Blue Ruin. I don't know if you've
Yep.
seen that.
Hmm.
Oh my God, I loved that film. And I think that Redux is very similar in that it really gets down to like the core of these characters and the journey they're on. And, personally, when watching sci-fi, or I'm like, pause. And then I'm like talking to whoever I'm watching the movie with, like, okay, so explain to me this, is that, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
experience. And what I appreciate about what my brothers did is that it's there. Obviously, it's a huge part of the movie, but it's really the
Sure.
backdrop. And you're
Yeah.
not going to get lost in the details. And they really make a point of not letting you go down that road. And I think that is such a relief for the audience. So you're not having to pause
Yeah.
through the movie and you can really just like start it and go on the ride.
Uh-huh. Was it kind of the same experience for you, Stella?
Yeah, completely. And I think the whole time making it, I felt the same way that the multiverse aspect of it is very central and engaging and aesthetic, but it's also kind of the vehicle by which they tell this story about these two people. And so I kind of tried not to concern myself with the technical aspect of it and was just kind of on the roller coaster of the emotional life of Mia and the relationships in the movie with Irene, especially, and what she's after and the lessons she learned and all those sort of actory things.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and let the multiverse aspect just kind of rest there. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of brings me to my next question, which is, I mean, your characters do have a lot of dialogue in the film, but they also reveal a lot more than usual through a lot of kind of the actions. I mean, because of the relationship that you two have, Stella, your character is kind of, she's Irene's grounding. She's kind of this person that helps ground her, but at the same time, she's exactly the opposite, and she kind of is this misfit who kind of goes against her. So I'm quite curious how you approach kind of building their inner lives, especially without relying on dialogue for the film.
I think for me it's like such a treat to kind of be able to be like just fully out there, and because Mia is such a big character and she's got so much energy and such like teenage angst and passion that I kind of was felt given permission by Kevin and Matthew to just like let loose entirely and not worry about being too big and or like having too much fun with it. And because they trust them so much and they know the ins and outs of this script, they would tell me to rein it in if ever. But I feel like that is the best way to work when you're not worried about being too big as
Yeah.
opposed to the other way around. So that was like a real treat for me.
Mhm.
And I think I really appreciated that we got to see Irene in all of the quiet moments, and we just kind of get to watch her journey and what does her life look like. And um, yeah, that was just really freeing as an actor to not have, there's not a ton of dialogue weighing it down. It's just sort of, you really just get to kind of like peek through the window on this woman in her life. And then you just see how things get ratcheted up, and her whole like sense of routine shifts so dramatically when she meets Mia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So another question for you, Michaela. So kind of it's no spoiler because it's in the kind of the plot synopsis that you go on a revenge killing spree, killing the same person over and over and over in these different parallel universes. Which kind of it's a compulsive loop. So I'm quite curious if when you approach this character, do you approach Irene's actions as a kind of a form of cathartic iteration, if you will, or did you feel it? Did you see it more as kind of a descent into metaphysical madness, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a scene in the film where she admits that she's really lost who she is. She doesn't even really know who she is anymore. And I think the idea of going after her daughter's killer and enacting this revenge was in a way to trying to find that cathartic, relief. And what she does find actually is that she's sort of become dehumanized, and it's taken more from her.
Mm-hmm. A similar question for Stella. Continue with this theme of kind of repetition. I don't know if it was intentional, but I read between the lines myself that this repetition, this cycle, felt almost like a very timely commentary on humans' current obsession with kind of success and of getting everything right and repeating it until it's right, kind of like on Instagram and social media, that kind of thing. Was that something that you talked about on set?
I don't think it was, but I love it as an idea, and I think there was definitely, I was thinking a lot about how when you, I mean, at various points in your life, of course, you can return to this feeling, but especially when you're 15, 16, and you have a lot of passion and angst and a lot of anger towards the world also. But like whatever the emotion is, everything is kind of at like its fullest. Like you're just brimming with love and also hate and sadness and envy and because everything kind of feels like the tip of the iceberg when you're that age. And so yeah, I think definitely perfection fits right in there along with anger and everything else, and like striving for something to be exactly how you want it to be, especially yeah, you just feel like you have to get it right because it's almost like it's because it's your first time in life and you're still figuring that out, and you're like, I am an adult because I'm 15, but you're really not. You like, yeah, everything feels really drastic in a way.
Mm-hmm. So when I was speaking to Kevin and Matthew earlier, they said that the project's kind of been brewing for about 10 years or so. And they said that to Michaela, they said that they once kind of toyed with the idea of dyeing your hair gray, and you were like, don't even think about it.
That's what, yeah, they did bring that up. And I was like, okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the reality is they know I would do anything for them. I mean, this movie is a true example of that, throw me in the swamp in the middle of the night, make me go under that freezing cold, disgusting water, whatever they want. Like I'm going to show up for them because they're my brothers and I want them to get what they need. So I certainly would have gone down that road. I was happy to, but I was relieved that we'd have to take it to that.
And I want to talk a little about you mentioned that this kind of it does kind of tip into certain films. You mentioned that your brothers mentioned quite a few films that you should watch just to kind of get the idea of the tone. But I love the fact that it does nod to certain films, even mention certain films but it never relies completely on those films whatsoever. So having watched those films, was it easy for you to kind of brush them off and get on with this film and forget about those completely? Because that's quite tricky to do.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And they, Terminators is a reference they bring up a
Yeah, they
lot.
mentioned Blue Ruin and Terminator is kind of the main two.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that image, that like Sarah Connor image, and she is like, I mean, she's ripped, she's such a badass in that movie. And so when I first hear that, I'm like, oh God, I gotta get to the gym and like really start,
Do some
taking it up,
pull-ups, yeah.
right? And I'm like visualizing what my character is wearing, and I'm like, all right, we got to get some like combat boots, or how are we gonna play this? And yes, those were the references that they were using, but then when I would talk to Kevin and Matt, they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Like we don't need you to be ripped, or like, and in fact, like those Reeboks that you wear kicking around, and when I'm taking my kid to soccer practice, that's perfect. Like we
Yeah.
want it to feel like you have fallen into this experience. You're not training, you're just kind of surviving in a way."
Hmm.
And that was such a gift, especially with all of the stunt work and the guns that I don't have a ton of experience with. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I have to learn how I'm holding this. Does it look exactly right? And they're like, it doesn't matter. Like, Irene had to figure it out on her own. She didn't have somebody over her shoulder telling her exactly what to do. She figured it out. So however that looks for your character is exactly as it should be. And
Yeah.
that was a really smart approach.
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I'm quite curious as well. I mean, you spend a lot of the time together on screen, but there's certain moments where you share time together in a kind of futuristic coffin come fridge thing. I'm quite curious how that played out on set, and how did you manage to kind of work all that together?
I
Must
think
have been
that
quite
was pretty
complicated.
early. That was pretty early on in shooting, I think. And like we did well, we did bond immediately, and like I, felt an affinity for you, but it was like we were like lying on top of each other, um, almost kissing. And but it was really fun. I think you got in it first alone, Michaela, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm jealous. I want to go in the box. And then they put me in the box. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're right on top of each other to the point where, there's a scene where that's in the trailer where I'm getting out, and then Mia emerges, and we couldn't actually film that with both of us in the box. So, it was
Mhm.
like I had to do my bit first because it was just too small. So yeah, there was some movie magic to make that work. But it was so cool. It looked amazing. Charlie did such an amazing job with that. And it
Yeah,
was
they
Yeah,
showed
very,
me the little prototype that they made on a
oh
on a
yeah,
3D
no,
printer or something. Yeah.
I
right.
don't think there are any like special effects on the machine because it looked exactly how it does in the movie in real life. Like every little detail, there were buttons, there were lights. It was incredible.
Yeah, they did a great job with that.
Uh-huh. I was that they also mentioned that you got to shoot quite in some pretty great places because where you shot is where so many movies have been made. But I mean, I think you got to see the car from Christine and all these different kind of things, no?
Yeah, yes, yes. And there's that tunnel.
Yeah,
Oh God.
From Dune.
Yes, yes, right. That was so cool. I was there for that. I mean, truly, I was like driving, the truck for that whole day when they were doing all of that. So it was cool because I really felt like I was part of every piece of making this movie, especially because it was my brothers. So,
Oh.
they brought me along for the ride. And yeah, I love that, it takes place in LA, and I think you really get a sense of atmosphere with how they shot the movie.
100%. I mean, speaking of your brothers, how do you work as a trio? Because this is the kind of, I mean, you've worked with them before, but this is the first time you've had a kind of really big lead role. I'm quite
Mhm.
curious how that relationship, that dynamic maybe changed this time around. Were you maybe more hands-on kind of in certain kind of direction at all?
I definitely felt the pressure of this film versus, Block Island Sound wasn't quite as intense as this role. And previous roles that I played for them, the stakes were higher. And I knew like this was so precious to them, and they'd been working on it for so long that I really had a sense of responsibility that I didn't want to screw it up for them. And it takes on like a whole extra life when it's your brothers and they're people that really, really matter to you on a whole other level. But at the same time, the great part about that is that they're my brothers and there's that trust is there from get-go. And like, we kind of, I can read them really easily. Like,
Yeah.
see in their face what they need, what they want, if they didn't get it, you know what I mean? It's just that's all those layers are already there, which is really helpful when you're
Yeah.
shooting on a
And I guess it's a lot easier to kind of to be more open than maybe you will be with another director that you've not really worked with before, no?
totally. Yes.
Yeah.
We've established that trust. So it's way easier. It's the best way to work, honestly.
Yeah.
Some of my best experiences are working with them for sure.
Yeah. So just they give me the wrap almost. So just to finish off then, I mean, after spending time with these two characters, what would you say would stayed longest with you, and what would you say stayed longest will stay with longer with you than you expected would stay with you after filming, right? Because all of these different themes that we mentioned during the interview. Is there anything that kind of stuck with you that kind of maybe changed the way you view life now
Oof.
because of the way that these different parallel universes change so much?
I mean, for me, the takeaway for this particular project was it was really challenging and I had to stretch myself in so many different ways. And just to get the opportunity to do that, it was so, as hard as it was so fulfilling. And I think my takeaway from this exact movie was like, I just want to do more of that, I really do. It just kind of like reignited my love for storytelling and making movies like this. And it just kind of like brought out even more passion that I was just so happy to light up inside of me and makes me excited for the next one. I hope I get to do with my brothers, knock on wood.
Stella?
Yeah, there'll be times where I'm taping an audition or reading a play or something, and like I'll just suddenly feel like I've read a line and Mia has come out again. And that's a nice feeling to know because they, you are your character as much as you're not your character, but they kind of all live in you forever. So it's a good feeling.
That's great. Well, that's a great way to end the interview. Listen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for a fantastic movie, and I hope to speak to you again sometime soon about another project or something.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, all the very best. Nice to speak to you.
He's taken everything from me.